M123 asks, how do I focus on the positive instead of the negative? Long story short, I'm doing great over quarantine. I exercise 6 days a week, read every day, and learning another language. Have given up certain addictions, trying to feel more positive. Problem is, I always tend to focus on the negative things that are going on in my life, from tiny slip-ups in my goals to sometimes a feeling of worry about a future I don't know exists. My question is, how do I focus on the positive aspects when they so greatly outweigh the negatives? I have no true reason to feel down or worried, etc., yet I tend to find myself feeling like that far more than I should. I'm an 18-year-old boy from the UK.
Okay, thank you for this question, LDM. You're not alone in this. My main recommendation is going to be to practice mindfulness and awareness of these thoughts, and then characterize this, give it a voice, and express these negative things either by writing them down or just saying them out loud in this character's voice of, you can call this a demon, a critic, a mouse in your ear, but just like visualize this and try and create a persona for it that is other than yourself, and recognize that that's one voice amongst many in your head. I like the little angel and demon on the shoulder from cartoons, if you've seen that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I know, but and I don't normally engage with your advice this way. But okay. I'm curious, what do you think that will help them do?
Why?
How will that be helpful?
And you know the answer.
I think so, yeah.
But you're rhetorically asking me.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this move. This is something that I think you've criticized me for in the past. But
asking follow-up questions on my advice.
Yeah.
Knowing the answer. Yeah.
What do I think that'll help you do? One, I think just acknowledging it and expressing it, getting it out of your head will reduce the number of repeats and intensity of certain phrases or thoughts that keep coming up, because like you see something change in the outside world, or you hear something, you witness something outside of your head. I think that just releases some of the urgent and incessant repetition of those voices. Yeah. And another is it will give you a model of choice of one, by recognizing when it's happening, and two, by classifying it as something that is not you, that you are outside of that, or there is a you that exists independent of that voice, gives you the opportunity to then replace it with other thoughts.
Yeah. I think the other element of it too is, especially when the object of the question, what
were you hoping I was going to say?
No, nothing specific. I just wanted to know, because I think that's a great suggestion. And I was curious what facets of it you thought would be most beneficial for this exact. You're hiding behind your microphone over there. I mean, no, I don't have any sort of like criticism, but I was really just curious about the main angle that you were getting at. And something that I would want to add, which maybe I was expecting you to say this on some level, was that you can give it sort of a almost humorous persona, like this sort of like unwelcome little villain that has kind of its own shortcomings, like building it into this kind of like creature character, that, it's like in the sitcom when the like weird uncle comes over and it's like everyone's like wah wah, like the uncle always says this, ha ha ha, that's so funny.
Eeyore, maybe you know about Eeyore,
right? Right. Giving it a voice that is also kind of is comical can disarm some of the harshness too of how negative it feels to you, and makes it more easily recognizable. And then it's something that you can laugh with almost. Rather than at, too. Laughing with it, because befriending our inner critic is really, I think, ultimately the way that we get it to get on the same team with it and get it to kind of like quote unquote go away. But if we approach it in this like antagonistic way, where it in a way senses that we're just trying to get it to go away, and it feels like it's not heard, it can come back with more gusto. Whereas if we honor this voice that's, a voice inside of us and try to get to the bottom of like, okay, well, what is it really doing? Chances are it's trying to protect us from making a mistake or sitting on our asses for too long or reverting to old behaviors that are undesirable. And so I think that ultimately the way to upend this voice is to really feel the feeling that it's trying to help protect us from and acknowledge that it's there for a reason, thank it, and then ultimately choose something else. And in this case, we're trying to choose like a more positive frame of mind rather than a more negative frame of mind. And so I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we all have this built-in negativity bias as a product of our evolution, where the negative stimuli in our life, no matter how many things are going well, even if you're exercising, like you're saying, you're exercising 6 days a week, you read every day, you're learning a new language, you're working on curbing your addictions and trying to be more positive. Those are all really wonderful things. But the way that the human brain works is we don't just sit on our laurels, and that's that the right phrase?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Thanks. Until I questioned it. We don't just sit on our laurels.
It was good.
So relatable. Sit on our laurels and be complacent, because then we're more likely to miss, some kind of survival threat versus the person who's always scanning for some potential threat. So just acknowledging and accepting like that's our orientation is a really big step. And then putting in proactive new behaviors, new thoughts, new patterns in order to counteract that. I mean, it's sort of like what's going on now in the world, where it's like, okay, it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. We have to actively do things to overcome our negativity bias. And so creating a character around that negative voice, converting it into something that is our friend that's trying to help us, and we're trying to learn more about them and work together towards a positive outcome. And even just the way that this question is worded, or the way that this breakdown of it is worded, is starting to do there. It's like, long story short, I'm doing great. Fuck yeah. Like, sit in that for a minute. It's hard to do. We have to actively interrupt our tendency to go, but. My therapist suggested this to me, and I think it's a great, super easy trick, is to just, when you're doing something enjoyable, or it's probably true for something that's not enjoyable too, but just sit with it for 13 seconds. 13 seconds. Apparently that's the amount of time that it takes to really like let something sink in and kind of shift the brain chemistry around something. So when you're having a positive experience, like you've done your daily reading or exercise or whatever, before you do it, spend 13 seconds thinking about how great it's going to be. While you're doing it, spend 13 seconds thinking about how great it is. And after you do it, spend 13 seconds reflecting on how great it was and how good you feel now because you did it. It sends the brain those extra signals of, I should send positive vibes up in here because this is what we're focusing on, and interrupts that pattern of, okay, but what's next? What's next? What's next?
If I'm trying to spend 13 seconds appreciating something, I worry that I'm going to be occupying a lot of my mind with the counting to 13, or the monitoring of that time amount.
Okay, 2 solutions. Go way over 13 or set a timer.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
I like a number of breaths. That's
good.
Feels like a line to my own rhythm rather than like something out in the world.
Yeah.
But I'm quibbling about details here. The general idea of stopping to notice when something is going well is great.
And it's amazing how it highlights. And I honestly would love to do it live and spend 13 seconds right now just sitting and breathing to demonstrate.
All right.
it's really fucking long. Like you think, oh yeah, 13 seconds. And then you go for like 5 seconds and you're like, oh my God, I'm still fucking trying to savor this. But it is important to take that long, and even longer, just because of, again, how oriented our brains are toward the negative. So it really takes an actual breath and investment to interrupt that.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay,
sitting here recording a podcast, looking at my friend. I'm going to appreciate this stuff.
Okay, so LDM, everyone else out there listening, try this with us and just take the next 13 seconds. We'll count for you. No worries.
Yeah.
And just breathe and appreciate that everything's okay right now.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, let's start.
All right, that was 13.
I counted really slowly just to make sure.
Okay.
How was that for
I
you?
didn't see you looking at a watch or anything. I was like, oh shit, this is on me. So I don't trust your...
I was just kind of counting and breathing
I see.
in my head.
Okay.
So what was that like for you?
It was nice, and then I had to look at the watch, and then it was nice again. And then I looked at the watch, and I was like, all right, there's not enough time for another break. I'm going to keep looking at the watch until we hit 13. So it was like 4 phases, I would say. How about you?
Okay, good. Honest. It was nice. I kind of felt this surge of just like, oh, I'm delighted to have this little space in the midst of my day. And yeah, I hope that you guys had an experience of that space as well, if you chose to participate in it, or if you just tuned out because you were like, fucking, I'm not going to listen to silence for 13 seconds. I have a schedule. I have allotted a very short period of time to listen to my podcasts. And I don't want this kind of crap. I don't want a podcast to come in and tell me they're going to be a podcast and then they don't do anything.
Right.
It's bullshit.
If you got one of those skip buttons on your podcast player that goes ahead 30 or 15 seconds.
You'll be joining us right now. Welcome back.
Yeah, exactly. You skipped over the dead air.
Well, then you really missed something. I think that you're missing an opportunity to not skip through your life. Did you see Click? Click is the saddest, most excruciating film like of all time.
Have you seen Schindler's List?
Touche. So do we have anything else that we want to say to LDM? And I should mention it could be capital IDM.
Oh.
It's one of those like small L, capital I question marks.
What's the D? Is the D also lowercase?
Yeah, everything's lowercase. So
Okay.
that's why I made that call.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I think that one of the most important things to say is like, you're doing great. Go fucking you.
See if you can identify other voices in your life that resemble this critical voice. And then what do you believe about them? Are you giving undue power to a boss, an authority figure, a teacher, a parent, a mentor, somebody who is habitually critical of you and downplays your accomplishments? This might be something that's tough to recognize, or it might be very obvious, and you just haven't connected it with your internalization of this voice. But I'd say just examine your beliefs about the people whose opinions matter about you and have been habitually critical. It's easy to internalize one of those voices.
Yeah. One final, I think that's great. And doing that process has helped illuminate a lot for me as I've uncovered what are the origins of different voices that I have in my head, different beliefs I have about how productive I need to be in order to be worthwhile, or just all these like totally arbitrary metrics that I use to just keep kind of whipping myself into doing whatever. But I think that sometimes, and I hesitate to even bring this up because I don't want you to feel that what you've done thus far is inadequate in any way. Sometimes if we do have a nagging anxiety about something, there is something to pay attention to with it, not to dwell on, but to just look and see, is this signaling that, okay, I'm doing all these things that are for my betterment and that's great, but maybe there's something else that I'm avoiding somehow. I don't know what that might be for you, but for me, I identify as a love addict. I've talked about that sometimes on the podcast. And so for a long time, I was focusing on all these other areas of my life and trying to optimize and problem solve and whatever. And there was this other thing, this other compulsion, this other root of inadequacy going on underneath all of that I still wasn't quite addressing because it just felt so shameful. And that shame, I think, was masked by like feeling like I was doing so many other things and like, it's okay, I can just put this off. I can just put this off. I can just put this off. So sometimes if you do have a reoccurring internal signal of being unsettled, it can be worth asking yourself, is there something in all of this good behavior that I'm still not addressing?
Right.
However, a lot of the time, and this is something I'm experiencing right now, it really is just I've been chronically oriented toward the negative, and I need to just give myself a fucking break, celebrate the things I'm doing right, and acknowledge that life is messy and not perfect and uncertain, and it's important to take stock of what's good while it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it.
Free advice.
Free advice.
Free advice.
Free advice.
Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Would you like free advice? Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Forever.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 59 of Free
God.
Advice. That over there is Morgan Beard.
And that over there, even though you can't see us in relative space, is Rob Zaleski.
Listen, I think that you can assume we're not sitting on top of each other, crowded around one
Below
mic
me, underneath my stool.
like a couple of netted up beluga whales.
You say nutted up or netted?
Netted up.
Okay.
You think... Okay, let's
How
just...
big do you think a beluga whale sperm load is?
Gallons.
I don't actually know how big beluga whales are compared to other whales.
I think they're on the smaller side of the whales.
Okay.
Whales are just fascinating, though.
They are.
Think about it. Left the water.
Yeah.
Were on land for a long time. Went back into the water.
Huh.
And got huge.
Wow. What do you think that they found out about living on land that they were like, nah, fuck this, back to the water?
Well, it was just a certain couple of them that were living by the shore and were probably getting eaten by another land-dwelling mammal they couldn't compete with, or they were just getting better food in the water. So they're either being out hunted or being hunted themselves, and so they just drifted more and more into the water.
Alternative possibility.
What?
Have you heard the song Under the Sea?
Yeah.
Sebastian the Crab, the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
His theory is that people on land just work too hard and slave away under the sun all day, and under the sea, it's better than anything they got up there.
You can kind of just float.
You don't have as many worries or stresses. It's
Gravity
sort of the Little Mermaid's
weighs on you less.
Hakuna Matata.
You can literally float. So I think that there's probably less muscle exertion for a whale.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to kind of anthropomorphize the whale's journey away from land, and just implying that, gosh, our lives are so complicated, these human lives on land. Mm-hmm. Would it be easier if we were just fucking in the sea, swimming with dolphins, chilling out, no coronavirus? That's all I'm saying.
I think this is a seagrass is always greener type of situation because whales have a lot of threats with boat rudders, loneliness. There was a humpback whale that, first of all, they all got their own songs. And this guy stopped his song and then 6 months later picked up right where he left off because he was lonely.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you have anything that you want to talk about, ask for advice on, or do you want to dive, no whale pun intended, into a question?
Let me take a moment, less than 13 seconds to...
Take as long as you need.
I'm not going to take over 13 seconds.
Don't spend the whole time thinking about the seconds that are elapsing.
I'm doing it already.
I know. I can see the wheels turning.
Nah.
Okay.
You?
Sure.
Do you have something?
No,
Okay.
I was actually going to use the whale song as a segue into our next question.
Do it.
But I
Let's see how
wanted to
that
give you
goes.
the opportunity. All right. So, look at this dude lull. Look at this dude lull. Asks, how do you do something that will make a difference?
Okay.
I've gotten into a weird slump where I feel like what I do doesn't make a difference in people's lives. I'm learning music, but that's more of a project I've taken up for myself, so it's not exactly going to change the world. I want to find something I care about and learn to use my voice to speak about it and provide a resolution to it the best way I can by being outspoken. Does anybody have any tips or experiences with this, and what's the best way to get over it?
I think you could start by looking at problems that you used to have that have since been solved, and then identify people who might be in that situation today. This is the age-old advice of be the person you needed when you were younger.
Yeah. I love that advice. It's definitely something that I've come back to over and over as I'm thinking about what meaningful things am I going to contribute to the world and what is needed. This question I chose because it resonates with me so much, and I think it resonates with Rob as well, because both of us are musically inclined and trying to use our skills and experiences to help other people through things that we've been through, basically normalize different things, and so I really partially don't have the answer to this question because it's something that I'm still working on, but partially do in the sense that I think that I guess I've gotten to the point where I have identified what do I want to change, what do I want to use my voice for, but I haven't built that platform and audience yet to the extent that I've wanted to. So I grew up with a father who was very much like a do-gooder and committed his whole life to public service and was always just about how can I multiply good in the world and take huge actions and make a huge difference. And I felt a lot of pressure underneath that to identify something that I could do that with, to identify something that for me, like, this is going to be my passion and this is how I'm going to change the world and make such a big difference. And truthfully, I've had different issues, social and political issues, kind of drift in and out of my sphere. Like, I was really into food policy for a long time. I was a vegetarian for 9 years, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to commit myself to addressing food crises. And that sort of led into an environmentalism thing, and thought, okay, these are these big, colossal societal problems that I want to be a part of the solution for. And then different things happened in my life. You know, I interviewed for this job, didn't get it, interviewed for that job, did get it. And it pointed me in different directions and exposed me to different issues that I could commit myself to and different things that I was passionate about. And now I feel really passionate about mental health and spreading awareness about emotional abuse and helping people to understand their emotions. And then most recently, really trying to think about how can I be a voice for racial justice and equity. So first, I want to just commend the fact that you're trying to make a difference and that you're looking for something that really speaks to you. And then I also want to point out that it's not perfect and it may not just be one thing. And you don't necessarily have to have a perfect, fully baked out plan to just get started and try to make small differences in a small number of people's lives and start to tinker with what works. What do people respond to? What do I feel good doing? What do I actually enjoy? There's sort of like what is the intersection between my interests, my skills, my passions, and what the world needs, and looking for the areas that fit all of those different criteria.
Mm-hmm. I want to say, don't put all of your investment into music or count on it to be everything. I think that'll make it harder to develop in it.
Yeah.
And I see this as potentially two problems or two courses of action. There's what you're doing and then how you're grading what you're doing. And so you may already be making differences that you discount. And I'd say it's probable that you are, but you could be comparing yourself to somebody like Bill Gates, Martin Luther King, the people that people often look up to as role models or heroes. And it's very uncommon for a human being to make that much of a difference to that many people. And most people are going to make differences on more of a one-on-one scale or be unaware of some of the differences that they make. So try to look at what kind of differences have you already made, maybe in the lives of close friends of yours or people that have given you something or you've given them something, partners. So that's one route is just like rewiring the way that you think about what is a difference.
Yeah.
Lowering that bar.
Yeah. Doing a real inventory of the impact that you have made.
It's really hard to fathom that there are almost 8 billion people on the planet and that we are one of them. You don't know that many people. You can't witness that many people at one time. But like to reshape the entire earth, it's very rare that one individual does something like that. So one piece of advice is lower the bar. Yeah.
I think that's such a great piece of advice. Not because like our thought is, well, I don't want to lower the bar because I don't want to not make as big of an impact ultimately. But I actually think that, I mean, in my own life, I have artificially jacked the bar up so fucking high sometimes that it completely overwhelms me and I can't fucking do anything. And it makes me feel so incapable when in reality, I'm not doing an accurate assessment of the impacts that I have made. And I'm not giving myself credit for that. But then I'm also acting like it's not worthwhile unless I'm impacting 8 billion people. And that's just such an unreasonable standard. And we can often try to bite off so much more than we can chew that we never get started. We never start with that first person that we're impacting and allow it to grow exponentially from there. So I love Rob's idea too of starting within yourself, taking a look at your life and thinking about what kinds of problems that you've had, what were the solutions to those, what would have been helpful in those moments, and then maybe doing some slightly wider market research of your community, through peers that you have a in-person relationship with or posting on social media. I've done this as a coach to do some market research to figure out what are people that are theoretically my ideal clients or just people that I could serve or impact. What are they going through? What are the challenges in their lives? What are they struggling with? What would help? And just collecting data on that and seeing if there are patterns and seeing if there are themes and talking to other people, I think, versus kind of staying in your own mind and bouncing off of your own walls is so important because that I've found gives me a lot of the inspiration to feel like, oh, not only are there these issues, but I'm already connecting with someone about them. I have ideas about what the solutions are and I'm more energized. Talking to people just does that. So that's the other thing that I would encourage you to do is just start having those conversations. And then you're already using your voice to talk and connect. And I think connection right now in this moment is a hugely meaningful contribution that you can do with your voice. Other options, of course, are recording yourself speaking about something, which you might find a topic for that once you do some of this research, and then posting that out. Because the more that you can, realistically, the way to like scale your impact is to not be having to have every impact be your time being used to directly impact one person. It's like, how can you pre-record something, put it out there, which, music is helpful for that. Put it out there and then people can listen to it as many times as they want on their own time, all at once. And that helps to make your impact a little bit more exponential, which is something that in coaching I've really resisted because I like working with people one-on-one. Right. But in music, I'm trying to lean into because it's catchy. It can take on sort of a life of its own. and then other people might want to listen to it more than one time.
Right.
I think the other thing too is don't discount that this is a personally meaningful process for you to be asking yourself these questions and trying to figure out what can impact other people. That's great. You don't have to make such a big difference to feel like your time on earth is worthwhile or justifiable.
Right.
That's a trap I fell into for most of my life and still fall into.
Yeah. And it's not something that you have to decide and then stay within the narrow confines of that decision until you die.
Right.
It's better. Movement is better than the direction, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes in order to figure out that something isn't the right path, you have to start down it.
Mm-hmm. And spend years plodding through it.
Yeah. And then the things that you learn from that will help give you a more unique lens in whatever the next thing that you do will be, because in that field, maybe someone else doesn't have this other diverse set of experiences that don't necessarily apply. Yeah, I think trusting yourself somewhat and trying to enjoy yourself along the way is important as well, because that'll keep gas in the tank as you go out and try to make a difference in the world, because that's a hard thing to do. And you have to be taking care of yourself in order to keep doing it.
Yes.
Cool.
Good. Next question. Hit me.
Sweet. All right. So this question comes to us from Carnlid. Carnlid. Would it be childish if I asked my dad to take me to the zoo? 13 male here. Sorry if this doesn't belong. The zoo recently opened back up in my town. I'm like going to cry. And I really want to go. Would it be childish to ask? I'm afraid to be seen as a little kid. I love this question so much. I have so much compassion for this person.
Thank you for the question, Carnlid. I think this is the right place to ask something like this.
Yes.
So this is a good spot. I'm glad you ended up on this podcast. And I don't think it would be childish to ask to go to the zoo. I think there is a childish way of doing it. You could go, Dad, zoo time, please. Remember your grammar. Like, straighten up your back when you ask. And
maybe if you have glasses, adjust them.
Yeah. Smoke a cigarette. I'm just kidding. Don't smoke cigarettes. It's a bad idea. But no, you can ask to go to the zoo. I think it's a nice idea. Adults go to the zoo, right?
Yeah. I think, honestly, I feel like your dad would probably love to go to the zoo too.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like something that you would both be able to really enjoy. And because things are now starting to open back up, it makes perfect sense that you're wanting to get out into the world to see them and explore them and interact with these animals. Like, I want to fucking go to the zoo now. This question makes me want to go to the zoo. I would totally take you to the zoo.
For real. I think it makes me wonder if there's a pattern of somebody calling you childish or telling you it's time to grow up about something else, and you're wondering if this is going to be a mistake because that person will seize this moment to prove that, aha, you're too childish. I think that person is... I don't know. They could be right in whatever realm that they're talking about. But I doubt it. I just go to the zoo and enjoy it. And I think the way that you go to the zoo is what determines whether it's childish or not.
If it's on a unicycle versus
that would be
a wagon.
Very adult, I suppose.
That's true. A trike then. Sorry.
Try and practice articulating what it is about the zoo that you like and what you appreciate about being there. Because as you become older, wiser, more aware of yourself and your experiences and better able to communicate those things, I think that there's a big difference between you at 13 at the zoo and you at 5 at the zoo. The things that you notice and the understanding of the feelings that the zoo gives you will be different now.
I think that's such a great point. Yeah, no one's ever too old to go to the zoo. And I do think that adults sometimes do try to kind of force kids to grow up earlier than they need to necessarily on these certain dimensions of like quote unquote maturity. Like you're now too old for this developmental stage, or you're too old to have this stuffed animal or whatever. But the reality is adults do all kinds of childish shit, and in a good way and a bad way. Like I think a lot of adults actually really struggle because they've shut down their inner child so much. They've shut down their ability to play and listen to themselves when they want to go to the zoo.
It could be that your dad is suffering from some of that.
Yeah, it's totally possible. And I think that it's such a great opportunity too, as I said in the beginning, for you guys to enjoy it together. And he should consider himself very lucky to have a 13-year-old son, as he does, that wants to spend time with him and is thinking about things that they can do together, and just to have access to your perspective on the world. Like, I think kids, based on the ways that adults sometimes regard them, feel like their perspective is not significant because of their lack of, physical or emotional maturity, whatever. But actually, I think that we really need all types of perspectives. And we love, speaking as an adult, I love the place mentally and emotionally, the space that I get to be in when I'm around kids. It's so fun. It's so imaginative. And it's in a lot of ways not limited by the experiences that we've often had as adults that show us like the world sucks and is a dark place. I think you're bringing a really important dose of play into your dad's life, and I definitely think you guys should go to the zoo.
I agree. If you meet resistance to this idea, I think you can go to the zoo with a project and perhaps convince any adults, perhaps your dad, that would call this a childish activity. I don't know whether it's photography, drawing, conservationism, animal study generally, like their behavior, anything like that. The zoo as a business, where do they put concession stands? How do they make their money? And any of those things, if you go to the zoo with like a new toolkit, could increase your likelihood of success if you get an initial no from an adult if they say, no, that's childish. And
I hope that you don't have to use that strategy, because we should all just fucking be able to go to the zoo. Am I cursing too much for like a 13-year-old audience?
No, they're on the internet. They've seen.
They're on the internet. They
they've
get
seen fuck.
Yeah.
Printed.
But yeah, I think that is actually like, it's a great idea, and I hope that he doesn't have to use it. Because I remember sort of having that lens with my dad too, of the like, oh well, we can do this, and this will be a great time to like do this other like project. And it's just like, why does it have to be a boring thing? Like, why does it have to be like a school assignment or something that's enriching or a learning process, whatever? Like, as an adult, I do appreciate those things more than I did as a kid. A learning opportunity, because I'm not in school. It's not something that I'm being forced to do for most of the day. But if you do meet resistance from your dad, I think that is a good idea to be like, okay, well, what if we kind of made it like, a field trip, this educational thing. But I hope that you don't have to make an excuse for wanting to see animals.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be an excuse. There may be a genuine, unexplored reason why the animals are fascinating. Is it you want to see them in that environment? Is it you want to see them anywhere? Is it you want to see lots of animals in a small period of time, like kind of a condensed experience of what you'd get out in the woods or out on a safari? There are a lot of good reasons to be interested in the zoo. And I think the more that you look within yourself, maybe it's a happy memory that you had another time at the zoo that you want to relive, or get in touch with how that felt that last time.
Maybe you want to come up with funny names for the animals, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you want to have an interaction with an animal. See, like, how similar is this other life form across the glass and me?
Yeah, that's That's a great question.
Yeah.
I love that. Anyway, what we're pointing to is there's so many fucking cool things you can do at the zoo.
Yeah.
I really hope you get to go.
I really hope you go and you don't have to take pictures or whatever, but if you do take pictures, please send them to us, freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com, or just tell us about how the zoo, it could be one line. I just want to know how the zoo was.
It was great.
Yeah.
I didn't go. My dad was a dick.
Favorite animal. That's all I want to know. What was the coolest one that you saw there? If you learned something interesting about it from a sign or a zoo guide, tour guide, I'd like to know that too. I've been watching a lot of Our Planet lately on Netflix. It's the planet Earth, but with a conservationist slant.
Does planet Earth have a non-conservationist slant? It's like there's all this cool shit, but like, who cares what happens to it?
Our Planet, every segment is about like, here's how the sea urchins are taking over the coral reefs, and here's what it looks like, and all of our oceans might be jellyfish soon.
Yeah.
Nothing but jellyfish, just these, and then scary music plays, and it's like every episode is really about like, here's how we screwed things up, and here's one example of how things could get better, and here's what we got to start doing to make them better.
Yeah.
It's like an argument piece, but the footage is so beautiful.
Oh my God.
It's so great. And they explain systems really well, of how interrelated things are. And they'll go from one location to another and show like, here's because this predator is diminishing. Here's what's out of balance. And it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like it a lot.
Hell yeah. I love it. All right. Carnlid. Yeah. Let us know about your experience at the zoo. We hope to hear about it. And just go ahead and tune out because the next question comes to us from Botanicangel. And this question is...
Why? Okay, go ahead.
I saw porn of my favorite video game character. Frowny face.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding, Carnlid. Feel free to do whatever you want.
Keep listening if you want.
Yeah.
Sure.
It won't leave my head. I have so much respect for the character and I relate to them so much. I don't know why I'm so disturbed. I can't look at them the same for some reason. Has anyone else been in this situation?
I have seen porn of video game characters that I liked. I haven't been so disturbed by it. Have you been in this situation, Morgan?
I am not like an avid gamer or porn consumer. However, I have seen pornographic representations of like cartoon characters that I'm familiar with. So I definitely understand
Disney characters.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Family Guy.
Yeah, exact. Those exact two. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Those exact two were the two examples I was thinking of, and
Who's the Disney characters?
multiple, like a ton, many different ones, like over the course of time. But so I understand the sentiment where it's just like, oh my God, I feel like this thing that I had a completely non-sexual relationship with or like engagement with is now feels violated. Mm-hmm. Like to put them into this space where suddenly they're like the object of some, graphic action. It's sad. It kind of feels like there's some childlike part of yourself that kind of dies when you see it. You know what I mean? Like sex or porn doesn't always have to be this huge violation of integrity, for sure. But when you have the expectation that you and relationship, like certain relationship with this character that this person has, to see them in that context without warning maybe, and to then have to like try to tease apart, well, okay, what are the things that I liked and respected about them and kept them pure in this way, and that now it can feel tarnished. I guess I'm just empathizing with the feelings that might be coming up around this, and that it now feels like it's tainted in some way, and you can't quite reverse that. It feels really raw right now because you just saw it.
I think the thing to do is focus on that it wasn't real, that it was not the owner or the original creator's intention to portray that character that way. And so it's non-canon. It's not part of the real story. I understand that there's some it being a fictional thing, whether it's real or not, is like subjective. But this isn't part of the real story, whatever that is. didn't appear in a game, wasn't condoned by the creator. This is somebody doodling, let's say, I don't need to pick other Mr. Rogers or other Winnie the Pooh. I don't know. Anybody's free to draw Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh
with
slut.
a giant dick, and he wraps it over his head and puts it up his own butt. You might see that in a bathroom stall graffiti somewhere.
This is getting so specific.
You might have seen that. It's not really. Well, it's not a real Winnie the Pooh. That wasn't the real Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think, even though it's hard, because sometimes things that are graphic like that can really like stick in your brain, is to remember, even if, let's say, the creator of this, your favorite video game character, did go rogue at some point and had your character do something that just wasn't in accordance with the value or the significance that this character came to take on for you, you can still decide that, okay, you know what I really liked about this character was X, Y, and Z. And you can kind of take on then that creator role in relationship to that character and say, you know what, like, this is where the stories diverge, and this is where I'm deciding that this character actually has, this other life or this other story option for them that is more in accordance with how I've found this character valuable, or just is less frightening in this case, or disturbing. I remember such a silly example. I remember at a birthday sleepover that I had. When, I guess it was around the time Saw came out. What?
You hosted this?
I hosted
it was
this.
Your
This
birthday.
is like the last birthday sleepover of my childhood, because at a certain point, exactly, it was my freshman year of high school. And I had this birthday sleepover and we watched Saw, and I don't feel like a spoiler alert is like necessary here because it's been out for like decades, but Saw, actually it's not a spoiler because I've invented this ending. But basically the guy, the villain of Saw is Jigsaw, this guy who has cancer and is dying of cancer, and he wants other people to experience their lives more fully, and so
appreciate them
while they have them, and so rigs up all these different. You want to keep coming up with synonyms? Sorry, that was
Investigate
sassy.
with gratitude.
That was sassy, but I really want to get to this. The other thing is, like, I know it's like not that good of a story, so it's, to belabor the point is like,
I'm helping.
Not great. Thanks. I appreciate your help. So I don't know. I found this movie like very scary and unsettling, and at the end, I was just kind of left with this feeling of like, ooh, like he could be coming for anyone, kind of thing. So the last friend who was at the sleepover and I came up, recorded, videotaped an alternative ending to Saw, where it was just like a shot of them like in the closet wearing like a mask that I happened to have. I think it was an alien. I was an alien in like 3rd grade for Halloween. And instead of them like leaving behind and getting away with it, he was basically like, he just was like, oh no, my cancer, and then just collapsed and died.
Okay.
So this was my way of processing and dealing with the fact that I had this fear, this lingering fear after consuming this content, that this Saw villain was going to come after me. And so I enlisted a friend to create sort of an alternative version of the story.
A little fan fiction.
Where he just dies and can't go on torturing people. All of that to illustrate that you can take this narrative that you like so much into your own hands to whatever extent you want to. That's the beauty of the process of creation anyway, and artistic output, and video games are hugely a part of that, and really bring us in because we participate. Yes.
You get to, assuming this is a playable character in the game, you get to control their actions. Well, it doesn't have to just take place with the controller.
Yeah. And so when you create something, you are just kind of giving the world this product. And the world can do whatever the world wants with it. And unfortunately, or I don't know, I don't want to condemn the person who made the porn illustration. But, you know, someone else is going to take it in a way that is their fantasy.
Sure.
And you have the ability to take it in a way that is your fantasy. And maybe this is an opportunity for you to
draw a new porn of the character.
Draw a totally different porn.
I wonder
maybe
if,
an Eiffel Tower.
If that would, if it was the, if it was just the idea that this character has a sexual life that's the issue, or specifically what was happening in this image or in this video clip of the character, whether they were in a position or doing something that doesn't match up with how you think about their values or their orientation even. Mm-hmm. Maybe imagine an alternative sexual life for this character. Because that sexual reproduction is where characters come from. I can't think of any characters in games that asexually reproduce, except maybe AI characters. It could have been Cortana in the Halo series, in which case it was designed and it wasn't necessary for artificial intelligence or robot creatures to mate to make her.
I love that idea though, and it is something that I wanted to come back to. Of like, you know, is it just the idea that this character has a sexual life, or is it the way that, just like what you said? And so thinking about what piece of it disturbs you, and what might that be telling you? What questions might this prompt for you to look at your own sexual life? We don't need to go too deep into that, but maybe this character was, I think it can be disturbing to see, especially like a character who is receiving treatment or in any porn, anything, receiving treatment that to me feels like a violation or feels excessively violent, or forceful.
Disempowering for a character that you had related to and felt powerful when you were occupying that. Yeah, is like fantasy.
Tied up and taking a giant dick and crying. That's so disturbing. Like, yeah, that's not my favorite porn arsenal. But what if they were?
A follow-up question about that after this question.
Okay,
what your favorite arsenal is?
You know, sex where the woman looks like she's enjoying it, something like that. But yeah, what would be a more empowering type of sex for this character to be having? What kind of partner or partners, or maybe they're having solo sex. I mean, it might be more triggering to go down this route ultimately. But if it's something you're having trouble getting out of your head anyway, it might be beneficial to not kind of run from it and wait for time to just slowly dissolve it from your memory, but actually to get empowered around, again, your creative potential here.
You maybe imagine this character with your crush. What would the character do?
Or with you? I don't know. I don't know if
with you, if you're attracted to the character. Yeah. Sure.
With your crush, yeah.
Or maybe you identify with the character.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or maybe there's some ideal partner for this particular character that you design, or maybe there's one already in the game. Whatever. We don't know who you're talking about, obviously, but
maybe imagine the character stumbling upon a pornographic representation of you that was equally horrifying, and then the character calling you and commiserating, and then you both reassure each other that, hey, it wasn't real. It was just somebody drew that. I don't do that thing that you saw, a character.
I love that. The character
says, I didn't do that thing either.
I love that. Yeah. So Botanic-Angel, ultimately, I'm sorry that you had that experience. It sucks to be just confronted with something that you didn't ask for that then taints something that was important to you. That sucks. And I really hope that you can get to a point where you have restored your sense of empowerment around this character or authorship around this character and can continue to live your life not being disturbed.
You might focus on the shortcomings of the artist. I bet that there's some difference. There's a way to tell that this is a counterfeit version of the character.
Yeah, like the dick isn't as veiny.
Yeah, it could be too veiny of a dick compared to the one that's pixelated in your video games. Something just off about the art style.
That allows you to discredit it.
Yeah. Lets
Yeah.
you know that's a lookalike. It's not the real.
Yeah.
It's an imposter.
Yeah. Did you have a follow-up question for me about something, the porn arsenal thing?
You said just where the woman looks like she's enjoying it. And
Yeah. It just like, it pains me physically if I'm watching.
What if there's no woman? What if it's just men or a man?
Okay. I think I would like for everyone in porn to be enjoying what they're doing. And it just does not always look like that's the case, even if it's consensual non-consent.
Yeah.
I feel a difference. Like, I feel a difference. And I also obviously just have a, I'm more interested in something a little bit like softer, less rough than, someone getting throat fucked until they cry or some shit like that. Like, that's not, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch someone do that and feel how uncomfortable that would be if that were happening to me. I want to imagine myself in the porn, like being treated that way. And so if that treatment is violent or harsh, and especially if it looks like she's not enjoying herself, which often it is, that's just really hard for me to watch.
Yeah. I don't see much of that myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, I do think the landscape of porn is changing somewhat. But there just is such a bevy of content that feels like a really bad lesson in here's how to have sex. And you just think about all the people watching it. And, some of them maybe are younger. Some of them are still developing ideas about what is human to human sex as opposed to video game to human sex, I guess. And not understanding the agency of both parties. So my heart hurts for that quite a bit. Yeah.
Do you have a specific character that would be the toughest for you to witness in a pornographic situation? Yeah.
Oh man, I think there are a lot of childhood ones.
Childhood characters.
Childhood characters, like shows that I watched as a kid, or
like Rugrats.
Characters that are children. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Reptar.
Well, he's a dinosaur. He's like an adult dinosaur. That could be hot. I could see that being hot.
But the babies.
Yeah, the babies.
Sure.
No. Yeah, especially if it also goes in like an incest direction. That's it's not for me. Again, I'm not trying to shame anyone if that's their thing. I've done incest role play. I don't know if that's something I wanted to just announce, but so like truly no shame. But yeah, it does feel like a violation because, like you said, it's not like the contract of the creator, and every other thing that's in that canon. It just doesn't follow. It's against their will. They're not asking. It's that lack of consent issue. Like the voice of Tommy, the person who drew Tommy, the creator of the show Rugrats, didn't say, yeah, this is a good way to use our art. Go for it. This seems right up our alley, right in our demographic.
That would be interesting as a long-term play for a character that has fallen out of favor, that was popular in the 90s.
To become a porn star.
Yeah. Well, like from the beginning, they were like, we're going to make this hit. We're going to do the Angry Beavers. Yep. And then once the audience has grown up, they're going to fuck. That was always the plan. But we have to first gather a following for them and then bring them back.
And then age
years
them.
later.
Wait for them to age.
Exactly.
This is a long game.
I have a photo of Cat Dog I got to show you.
Oh. Okay. Am I gonna like it? Am I gonna feel violated for life? Okay. It's okay. I don't really have respect for Cat Dog. I'm not like out there being these are the most respected characters in my.
I love those two, or that one. I guess it depends on how you define personhood. Is it the brain? Is it the body? Some combo.
Or cat doghood, because they're not like people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, good luck out there. It's trying times.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we did today.
all we did.
That's all we
covered
got.
a lot
I meant
of
to say,
ground.
not
Covered
did. Got.
a lot of
No, we did.
Let's avoid
We
the
nailed it.
negativity bias. I think we did great.
These are good questions today. Brand spanking new territory.
Yeah. I think so too. I'm really excited to be able to share them with the people that asked.
Same.
All right, guys. So if you're listening and anything that we said brought up a question, a comment, feedback, whatever, if you're someone who asked a question and you want to tell us how the situation went down, you can always email us at freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
That's Morgan said it.
All right. Take care and good night.
Good night. Sleep tight. Sweet dreams. Dream of us chatting, commentating on whatever you're dreaming about. And
Guys, dream about whatever you want.
Dream about
Do email us, but dream about whatever
this
you want.
episode, previous episodes, the one with the guy with the bug, whatever. Just dream it up.
The one about pegging. Someone recently told me that they listened to Begging for a Pegging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
And
a
they were happy about
professional context. And they were like, hey, I checked out your podcast and I really laughed at the Begging for a Pegging title. And I was like, all right.
Number
Awesome.
one episode. Good. Oh, are we going to have a rhyming title for this one?
Ooh, I don't know. To the zoo. Kind of rhymes. I saw in San Francisco, I was just visiting San Francisco. We walked by a bus that just said, to the zoo. I thought it was really funny. So that was top of mind.
What about I outgrew the kazoo, but not the zoo?
Ooh.
Kazoo and zoo kind of rhyme. It's really the same sound twice.
Depends on how strict you are in your definition of rhyme. What kind of rhyme you're looking for.
Outgrew kazoo, not dazoo. D-A. Zoo.
So we'll keep brainstorming.
Yeah. That's probably going to be one that makes it into the title of it. Something zoo related.
Find out.